Imagine walking through the wealthiest, most glittering city on the planet. You're surrounded by these massive, 160-foot high brick walls.
Well, the scale of it is just completely unbelievable.
It really is. You see the legendary hanging gardens, terraced all the way up into the sky. You hear the clatter of chariots glinting with solid gold.
And you have to imagine the smells, too, the spices from merchants who have traveled across the known world just to sell their silks in the marketplace.
Exactly. So this is ancient Babylon, roughly 5,000 years ago. It's the undisputed pinnacle of human civilization and opulence.
Yeah, it's the center of the world at that time.
But as you walk these dusty, vibrant streets, you notice something really jarring. 90% of the people walking past you.
The ones actually doing all the work.
Right, the people actually building the chariots, baking the bread, carrying the water, they are completely desperately broke.
The contrast there is staggering. You have this incredible concentration of wealth at the very top, and then a vast population of exhausted working-class people.
Yeah, people who are just struggling to survive from one week to the next.
They are quite literally drowning in an ocean of abundance, yet, they can't seem to capture a single drop of it for themselves.
Which, let's be honest, sounds suspiciously like walking through any major modern metropolis today.
Absolutely. It's the exact same dynamic.
You can stand in the shadow of a $1 trillion tech headquarters while people are living paycheck to paycheck in the apartments right below it.
We tend to think of modern finance as this incredibly complex digital ecosystem.
Yeah, like algorithmic, high-frequency trading, cryptocurrency derivatives.
Fractional reserve banking, all of that. And we assume that wealth is this esoteric puzzles requiring a supercomputer to decode.
But when you strip away the screens and the apps, what are you left with?
You're left with human behavior. And human behavioral economics, well, they haven't had a software update in millennia.
Yeah, the tools we use to spend and save have evolved dramatically, sure. But the psychological drivers?
Fear, greed, the desire for status.
The temptation of instant gratification.
Exactly. They are identically the same as those of a Babylonian merchant 5,000 years ago.
The laws of wealth are as immutable as the laws of physics. Gravity pulled the same way in Babylon as it does today.
And compound interest functions with that same relentless mathematical certainty.
So that brings us to our mission for this deep dive. Today, we are cutting through all the noise of modern financial gurus and algorithmic day trading.
We're going back to the basics.
We are diving into George S. Clason's monumental classic, The Richest Man in Babylon.
It's such a foundational text.
It really is. Our source material today is this collection of ancient parables, stories, and actual historical translations that essentially decode the raw DNA of money.
And the goal here is to take these ancient universal secrets and distill them into a highly practical toolkit.
A toolkit that you, the person listening to this right now, can use today to escape debt, build actual wealth, and insulate your future against disaster.
And we begin with that exact contrast we mentioned earlier between the ultra-wealthy and the struggling working class.
Right. So the text introduces us to two specific characters. There's Bansir, who is a master chariot builder.
And Kabi, a very talented musician.
And we don't meet them working hard, which is interesting. We meet them in a moment of total psychological paralysis.
Yeah, Bansir is just sitting on the walls surrounding his property, just staring blankly at a half-finished chariot in his workshop.
His wife keeps giving him these pointed looks because, their meal bag is completely empty. But he just cannot bring himself to lift a hammer.
He's watching the long lines of slaves carrying water to the king's gardens, and the wealthy classes pushing people into the gutters.
He is completely frozen by the sheer unfairness of it all.
Then Kabi walks up, and Kabi asks to borrow 2 shekels.
Just 2 shekels.
Which is an utterly trivial amount of money. It's the equivalent of asking a friend to cover, like a cheap cup of coffee today.
And Bansir has to look at his lifelong best friend and admit this devastating truth.
He says, I don't have it.
Yeah, he says, if I had 2 shekels, I wouldn't lend them to you or anyone, because those 2 shekels would represent my entire fortune.
Oh, man. That confession just triggers a profound, painful awakening for both of them.
They start to really interrogate their own lives. They realize, wait, we aren't lazy. We've worked grueling dawn-to-dusk hours our entire adult lives.
We make beautiful, valuable things. We live in the epicenter of global wealth.
So why are our families eating sour goat's milk and porridge?
It completely shatters the grand illusion of the working class.
Which is what?
The belief that hard work alone guarantees financial success.
Right.
Bansir and Kabi articulate this painful epiphany. They've been satisfied to work long, exhausting hours and then simply spend their earnings freely.
Assuming that because they were honorable and industrious, the gods would eventually drop prosperity into their laps.
They mistook labor for a financial strategy.
And hope is not a financial strategy.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Working hard at your job makes your boss wealthy. It doesn't automatically make you wealthy unless you understand the mechanics of capturing the value you create.
So they realize they need to find someone who actually understands the rules of the game.
They decide to consult their childhood friend, Arkad.
Now, Arkad is an interesting figure because he did not inherit his money.
Right, he wasn't born into Babylonian royalty or anything.
But he is currently universally recognized as the richest man in Babylon.
His wealth is so immense that the king himself frequently borrows gold from him to fund infrastructure projects.
So Bansir and Kabi gather up a group of their equally broke childhood friends, and they go confront Arkad.
They just show up and present their case.
They say, look, we had the same teachers, we played the same games as kids.
We work just as hard as you do, if not harder. Did fickle fate just randomly bless you and ignore us?
And Arkad, to his credit, does not sugarcoat his response at all. He completely dismantles the idea of luck or fate.
He looks at these guys he grew up with and tells them plainly, if you have not acquired more than a bare existence in the years since we were youths,
it is because you either have failed to learn the laws that govern the building of wealth, or else you do not observe them.
It's a brutal reality check. I mean, ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
And knowing the law but lacking the discipline to follow it yields the exact same result, an empty purse.
So, to prove his point, Arkad tells them his origin story, which serves as the foundational philosophy for everything we are going to talk about today in this deep dive.
Arkad explains that he started out at the absolute bottom of the professional ladder.
He was a humble scribe in the Hall of Records.
He spent his days literally carving cuneiform into wet clay tablets.
It was tedious, low-paying, back-breaking work, but he had this intense, burning desire to understand how money worked.
Then one day, a notoriously wealthy and demanding moneylender named Algamish comes into the hall.
And Algamish orders a copy of the Ninth Law to be carved into clay by the very next morning.
Which is an impossibly tight deadline.
Yeah, Arkad recognizes this as a rare moment of leverage. He doesn't ask for extra copper coins.
He negotiates for something exponentially more valuable.
He tells Algamish, I will stay up all night and carve this entire law for you if, when the sun rises, you tell me the secret to wealth.
He literally trades his intensive, desperate labor for specialized knowledge.
And the physical toll is immense. He works by the flicker of a tiny oil lamp.
His back is cramping, his eyes are burning, his head is pounding.
But when Algamish returns the next morning, the tablets are carved.
And, true to his word, Algamish looks at this exhausted young scribe and delivers the golden rule.
He distills the entire foundation of wealth creation into a single, profound sentence.
He says, I found the road to wealth when I decided that a part of all I earned was mine to keep. And so will you.
Okay, let's pause right here and deal with the immediate psychological friction this creates.
Because it always creates friction.
When I first read that line, my internal monologue immediately pushed back. I'm thinking, wait a minute. If I get a paycheck for $5,000, all of that $5,000 is mine to keep.
Right, you work for it.
I earned it. What is this guy talking about?
That is the exact trap Algamish anticipates. He challenges Arkad, and really by extension you, the listener, on that precise assumption.
He asks Arkad, do you not pay the garment maker? Do you not pay the sandal maker?
Do you not pay for the things you eat?
If you receive your monthly income and you immediately turn around and hand it to your landlord, the grocery store, the utility companies,
The streaming services, the local restaurants.
what have you actually kept?
Nothing. You've kept the calories you consumed and the clothes on your back, but the actual capital is gone.
Algamish delivers this gut punch of a line. He says, you labor for others. As well be a slave and work for what your master gives you to eat and wear.
It's so true. If your entire paycheck goes to servicing your lifestyle and your debts, you're just a temporary conduit.
The money flows from your employer's bank account, passes briefly through your hands, and deposits directly into the bank accounts of your creditors.
It completely reframes our modern concept of consumerism. Buying things does not make you wealthy.
No, it makes the person selling those things wealthy.
To break that cycle of essentially working as a financial slave for the sandal maker and the baker, you must establish a new hierarchy.
You have to pay yourself first, before you pay the landlord, before you buy the groceries.
Algamish gives Arkad a non-negotiable mathematical baseline. Keep no less than 1/10 of your income.
Save 10% automatically right off the top.
It sounds so simple, but the execution is where people fail.
Oh, constantly. And Arkad fails too.
Yeah, he doesn't magically become a billionaire overnight just because he heard a good quote.
He really struggles with the application. He makes the most common beginner mistake in the world of investing.
Chasing yield without understanding risk.
Exactly. Arkad diligently saves his 10% for an entire year.
Algamish comes back to check on his progress, and Arkad proudly announces that he gave his accumulated savings to a brickmaker.
A brickmaker, because this brickmaker was traveling across the sea to Tyre, and the plan was for him to buy rare Phoenician jewels.
And when he returned, they would sell the jewels to the wealthy class and split the massive profits.
Which is the ancient equivalent of taking your entire 401k and handing it to your plumber because he heard about a new cryptocurrency that's supposedly going to the moon.
Why do we do this? It's the psychology of wanting a shortcut.
We do the hard work of saving, and then we get impatient. We want the money to multiply instantly.
Algamish is furious,
Yep.
but he's not surprised.
He berates Arkad. He asks, would you go to the bread maker to inquire about the stars?
No, by my tunic, you would go to the astrologer.
He correctly predicts that the brickmaker is going to get scammed.
And he does. The brickmaker buys what he thinks are rare jewels, but they're just worthless bits of colored glass.
Arkad's entire year of grueling savings is wiped out in a single bad decision.
It illustrates a vital mechanism of wealth. Capital preservation must precede capital appreciation.
You have to guard your money from your own greed.
If you're going to invest, you only seek advice from experts who have proven competence in that specific domain.
You don't take real estate advice from a dentist, and you don't take jewel advice from a brickmaker.
So Arkad takes the painful lesson to heart and starts over. He saves his 1/10 for another year.
And this time he applies the wisdom. He lends his money to a shield maker named Agar.
Agar uses the money to buy raw bronze, makes the shields, and pays Arkad a steady, reliable interest.
Arkad has successfully deployed his capital safely, but Algamish asks the follow-up question.
He says, okay, you're earning interest. What are you doing with the interest?
And Arkad, feeling like he's finally making it, says, oh, I took the interest and I threw a great feast.
I bought honey and wine and spiced cake, and I'm saving up to buy a beautiful scarlet tunic.
Algamish just laughs at him. He delivers one of the most vivid metaphors in the entire text.
He says, you do eat the children of your savings.
Eating the children of your savings. That is a terrifying, brilliant way to describe the failure to compound your wealth.
It perfectly illustrates the mechanism of compound interest.
Every piece of gold you save is a worker.
It's an employee that works for you 24 hours a day, never gets sick, and never asks for a vacation.
Every copper of interest that gold piece earns is its child.
If you want to build an army of golden slaves working for your financial freedom, you cannot eat the children.
You can't immediately spend the dividends on lifestyle upgrades.
You have to let the interest earn its own interest and let those children have children, generating a cascading avalanche of wealth.
But Arkad figuring this out for himself in the quiet of his own life is one thing.
How do you scale that?
Right. How do you take these individual psychological breakthroughs and apply them to an entire civilization that is currently drowning in poverty?
Because that is the pivot the text makes next. We move from a personal mentorship to a systemic economic crisis.
King Sargon returns to Babylon after a long military campaign, expecting to find his city thriving.
Instead, the royal chancellor informs him that the city is in a depression.
The massive infrastructure projects, the walls, the irrigation canals, they're all finished.
And the royal gold that funded those projects has pooled into the hands of a very small group of wealthy men.
The common people simply don't have enough money to buy goods or sustain the economy.
The king recognizes a fundamental macroeconomic truth. A city cannot be truly wealthy if its citizens are poor.
You can't just mandate prosperity. You have to teach the populace how to capture and hold wealth.
So he summons Arkad.
The king essentially asks him, can wealth be taught?
And Arkad insists that whatever one man knows can be taught to others.
So the king commissions him to take a class of 100 selected men and teach them the mechanics of wealth, so they can then go out and teach the rest of the city.
Arkad gathers these 100 men in the Temple of Learning.
Over the course of 7 days, he presents what he calls the 7 cures for a lean purse.
This is the practical, step-by-step toolkit for building a financial fortress from the ground up.
Let's dive deeply into these cures because they address the precise friction points people face today.
Cure 1 is, start thy purse to fattening.
This is the 10% rule we discussed, but Arcad explains the psychology behind why it works.
He asks an egg merchant in the crowd, if you put 10 eggs into a basket every morning and take out 9 every evening, what eventually happens?
The merchant replies, eventually it will overflow.
The math is undeniable, but Arcad focuses on the psychological shift.
When you start accumulating money, when your purse actually feels heavy, or when you log into your bank account and see a growing balance instead of a diminishing one,
It changes your posture.
it brings a profound sense of satisfaction and confidence.
It reduces the baseline anxiety of your daily life.
You stop operating from a place of fear and scarcity and start operating from a place of security.
But the very next day, Arcad hits the major roadblock. Cure 2 is, control thy expenditures.
And immediately, a student wearing a flashy red robe stands up and voices the exact objection that ruins most financial plans.
He says, wait, if we all earn different amounts, how can we all just save 10%?
My 90% isn't enough to cover my needs now. If I put myself on a strict budget, it's going to feel like a financial straitjacket.
It's going to strip all the joy out of my life. I'll just be a slave to the budget.
It is the eternal protest against budgeting. We view budgets as punitive restrictions.
But Arcad completely flips the paradigm. He asks the man who makes this budget.
The man admits he would make it for himself.
Arcad replies, if a pack-ass were to budget his own burden, would he include jewels and heavy rugs?
No, he would pack hay, grain, and water.
A budget is not a tyrant telling you what you can't have.
A budget is a defense mechanism. Arcad says the purpose of a budget is to defend your most cherished desires from your casual passing wishes.
That phrasing is crucial. We constantly sabotage our long-term cherished desires
Like financial independence, a home, or a secure retirement.
because we succumb to casual passing wishes.
Like a new car lease, an expensive dinner, or the latest smartphone.
Arcad warns that we must fiercely separate our necessary expenses from our desires.
He says, just as weeds grow in a field wherever the farmer leaves space for their roots, even so freely do desires grow in men whenever there is a possibility of their being gratified.
That is the absolute perfect description of lifestyle creep.
If you get a $10,000 raise tomorrow, your desires will magically expand to consume exactly $10,000 worth of new necessities.
A nicer apartment, a premium gym membership, better groceries.
Unless you actively build a wall around that new income and defend it, the weeds of desire will choke it out.
You have to actively protest your own expanding lifestyle.
Once you have arrested the lifestyle creep and you are saving the 10%, you move to cures 3 and 4.
Multiply thy gold and guard thy treasures.
We've touched on the mechanics of compounding, but Arcad tells a specific story here.
Yeah, of a farmer who leaves 10 pieces of silver with a moneylender in trust for his newborn son.
The agreement is that the moneylender will pay 1/4 of its value in interest every 4 years.
And the farmer does the smartest thing possible. He tells the moneylender to add the interest back to the principal.
He doesn't take the payout. 50 years later, when the farmer passes away, the son goes to the moneylender.
That original 10 pieces of silver had compounded into 167 pieces.
It multiplied nearly 17 times over simply because time was allowed to do the heavy lifting.
Time is the ultimate multiplier, but time also introduces risk.
That brings us to cure 4, guarding your treasure.
Arcad warns that misfortune loves a shining mark.
The moment you have a pile of cash, every friend with a can't-miss business idea and every marketer with a high-yield scheme will come looking for it.
You must protect the principal. You do not deploy capital into any investment where the principal is not secure.
You demand collateral. You demand a track record. Better a little caution than a great regret.
Cures 5 and 6 deal with the physical reality of living.
Cure 5 is, make of thy dwelling a profitable investment.
In modern terms, this is the debate between renting and owning.
The text argues that paying a landlord forever drains your wealth, while owning your own home creates a fortress of equity.
And reduces your cost of living in your later years.
Cure 6 is, ensure a future income.
You will get old, or you might die unexpectedly.
You have to build the ancient equivalent of life insurance and retirement accounts so your family isn't thrown into the street if you lose your earning power.
But it is Cure 7 that serves as the engine for all the others.
increase thy ability to earn.
You cannot cut your expenses down to zero.
At some point, to accelerate your wealth building, you have to increase the top-line revenue.
This is where I think of Cure 7 like a video game skill tree.
Right. Arcad points out a massive psychological flaw in how people pursue wealth. He says you cannot just have this vague, nebulous desire to be rich.
That is a weak, formless longing. The brain doesn't know how to execute be rich.
You have to desire something highly specific and tangible. You have to say, I desire to earn 5 extra pieces of gold this month.
Because that specific target gives you a metric to solve for.
Once you define the 5 pieces of gold, you look at your current skill set. What can I do to provide 5 extra pieces of gold worth of value?
You realize you need to study more, learn a new technique in your craft, or work more efficiently.
Right. You level up your specific skills, and once you earn those 5 extra pieces, you haven't just gained the money.
You have gained the capacity to earn.
You have the experience points. Now, you can set your sights on 10 pieces of gold, then 20.
Arcad insists that the man who seeks to learn more of his craft shall be richly rewarded.
The more wisdom you have, the more value you provide, and the more money you command.
So those are the 7 cures. They are deeply rational, mechanical steps.
You save, you budget, you compound, you guard, you own, you protect, and you learn.
But the text doesn't stop at the mechanics.
Because if you gather 100 men and teach them these rules, some of them are still going to outpace the others.
Some people will stumble into massive windfalls. This raises the inevitable quirk of the X factor.
The question of luck. Is it all just cold, hard math, or does the universe pick favorites?
Is there a way to actually manufacture good fortune?
To explore this, the source material takes us to the Temple of Learning on a different evening,
where the men of Babylon are openly debating how to attract the goddess of good luck.
It is a fascinating psychological study, because when human beings think of luck, what is the very first thing they default to?
Gambling. Games of chance, the roll of the dice.
Exactly. The men immediately bring up the gaming tables and the horse races.
They view luck as a sudden, unearned windfall provided by the gods.
But Arcad quickly and surgically dissects the math of gambling.
He points out that the odds at the gaming tables are not a mystery. They are meticulously structured and mathematically weighted to favor the gamekeeper.
The house always wins.
The house always wins. Arcad explains that while a player might experience a temporary streak of wins, the mathematical certainty is that over a long enough timeline, the gamekeeper captures the profit.
He challenges the room to name a single man who has built a lasting estate and true wealth from the gaming tables.
No one can. Luck at the gaming tables is an illusion designed to separate a fool from his money.
So, they pivot away from gambling and start looking at business and trade. Where does luck manifest in the marketplace?
And an older, wealthy merchant stands up and introduces the ultimate enemy of luck. He calls it the procrastinator.
He tells a story that perfectly illustrates how luck actually functions in the real world.
This is perhaps one of the most vital concepts in the entire text, because it redefines luck from a passive event to an active requirement.
The merchant tells the crowd that when he was a young man, a friend approached him with a brilliant investment opportunity.
The friend had found a massive tract of barren land high above the irrigation canals.
It was dirt cheap because it had no water.
But the friend had a plan. They would pool their money, build a series of water wheels operated by oxen, raise the water up to the land, irrigate it,
and then sell the fertile plots to farmers for a massive profit.
It was a completely sound, mathematically proven plan. All the young merchant had to do was commit 10% of his earnings to fund the build.
But the merchant hesitated. Why? Because the money he needed to invest was currently earmarked for immediate gratification.
She and his wife had just seen these beautiful new robes imported from the East.
They wanted to buy clothes. They wanted to look successful now rather than be wealthy later.
So he delays. He tells his friend, "It's a great idea, but I need time. Let's talk about it later."
He procrastinates. The friend goes ahead without him, builds the water wheels, and makes an absolute fortune.
The merchant missed out on life-changing wealth simply because he hesitated.
And immediately, a camel buyer in the crowd stands up and shares a remarkably similar failure.
He was returning to Babylon late one night and found the city gates locked.
Outside the gates, he encounters a desperate farmer who needs to sell his massive flock of sheep immediately because his wife is sick.
The farmer offers the camel buyer the entire flock at a staggering discount.
All the camel buyer has to do is pay a small deposit right then and pay the rest in the morning.
But the camel buyer is stubborn. It's dark. He can't see the sheep perfectly.
He thinks, What if there are fewer sheep than he says? I'll just wait until the sun comes up to count them.
He refuses to take action. He decides to wait until morning.
And what happens in the morning?
The city gates swing open, and 4 other buyers rush out.
It turns out a siege is threatening the city, and the price of food has skyrocketed overnight.
The farmer sells the flock to the new buyers for 3 times the price he offered the night before.
The camel buyer lost out on a massive guaranteed profit because he demanded absolute perfection instead of taking decisive action when the opportunity presented itself.
So what is the mechanism here? Why are these stories about luck?
A Syrian man in the crowd synthesizes the lesson perfectly. He points out that both men were visited by opportunity, but they let the spirit of procrastination defeat them.
He says, opportunity is a haughty goddess who wastes no time with those who are unprepared.
The profound realization is that good luck is not a random lightning strike.
Good luck is the exact intersection where preparation meets opportunity.
But the crucial ingredient, the catalyst that actually makes the luck happen, is action.
Good luck specifically favors men of action.
If you sit around waiting for the universe to drop wealth into your lap, you will be waiting forever. You have to conquer your own hesitation.
Action manufactures luck.
I love that, but it also sets up a dangerous paradox.
Right. If you take action and you start making money, you suddenly have capital.
And capital without wisdom is a recipe for disaster.
To illustrate this, Arkad shares the story of his own son, Nomasir.
Arkad was deeply opposed to the concept of unearned inheritance. He knew that handing a fortune to a young man who hadn't learned the laws of wealth would simply destroy him.
So when Nomasir comes of age, Arkad essentially kicks him out of the house for a decade.
He gives Nomasir a bag of gold and a clay tablet with the 5 laws of gold carved into it.
He tells his son, go out into the world, in 10 years, come back and show me an accounting of your deeds.
If you prove you can handle wealth, you will inherit my estate. If you fail, I will give everything to the priests.
It is the ultimate test of raw capital versus financial wisdom.
Arkad gives him both the money and the instruction manual.
And Nomasir, acting like almost any youth handed a sudden windfall, completely ignores the instruction manual.
He throws the clay tablet into his saddlebag and focuses entirely on the gold.
And he is immediately separated from his money.
He joins a caravan heading to Nineveh. The men in the caravan realize he is young, rich, and naive.
They convince him that a local man in Nineveh has a horse that has never been beaten and that they should pool their money to bet against it.
Nomasir throws a massive chunk of his gold into the wager. Of course, the race is rigged, and he loses it all.
The classic trickster setup. But he still has some gold left.
Instead of reading the tablet, he doubles down on bad decisions.
He meets a guy who claims to be a merchant. The guy says, let's buy a shop together and split the profits. You put up the gold, I'll run the business.
Nomasir agrees. The partner turns out to be lazy, incompetent, and completely drains the business.
The shop fails, and the rest of the gold is gone.
Nomasir hits absolute rock bottom. He has no gold, no business, and no friends.
He is reduced to selling his fine robes, his horses, and his slave just to buy a crust of bread.
He is starving in a foreign city. It is only in that moment of profound, bitter despair,
when the arrogance of unearned wealth has been completely burned away,
that he finally remembers the clay tablet his father gave him.
He pulls out the tablet and reads the 5 laws of gold.
Let's break these laws down, because they essentially form the protective armor around everything we've talked about so far.
Law 1. Gold comes gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings.
That's the savings rule.
Law 2. Gold labors diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment.
That's the compound interest rule.
Law 3. Gold clings to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling.
Law 4. Gold slips away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar.
And Law 5. Gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings, or who follows the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers.
Nomasir reads these laws and has a revelation. He realizes that if he had sought wisdom first, the gold would not have been lost.
The gold slipped away precisely because he violated laws 4 and 5, investing in unfamiliar businesses and trusting tricksters.
But armed with this wisdom, he realizes he can start over.
He takes a grueling, terrible job managing a slave crew, building the massive outer wall of Nineveh.
It is backbreaking work for very little pay, but he immediately applies Law 1.
He saves a single copper from his meager earnings. He protects it. He waits.
And because he is prepared, opportunity eventually arrives.
The master of the slaves crew approaches Nomasir and the other foremen. He says the city is going to need massive bronze gates. The metal has to be brought from far away.
If we pool our small savings, send a caravan to the mines to buy the metal now, we can sell it to the king at a profit when the gates are ready to be built.
This time, no monsieur evaluates the opportunity against the 5 laws.
Is it a business he understands? Yes.
Is he investing alongside experts? Yes, the master foreman knows the metal trade.
Is it an impossible get-rich-quick scheme? No, it's a solid supply chain play.
He invests his saved coppers. The plan works flawlessly, and his wealth begins to multiply.
10 years pass. No monsieur returns to his father's house in Babylon. Arkad throws a great feast.
No monsieur stands before the guests, and he places a bag of gold on the floor.
He says, "Father, you gave me a bag of gold, and I lost it all because I lacked wisdom.
Then he places 2 more massive bags of gold next to it.
But the wisdom you gave me allowed me to earn it all back, and more."
He proves, unequivocally, that the knowledge of how to build wealth is infinitely more valuable than a lump sum of cash.
You can take all the money away from a wise man, and he will earn it back. You give a fortune to a fool, and it will rapidly evaporate.
No monsieur passes the test. But the narrative introduces a very specific, highly emotional complication that occurs the moment you start accumulating wealth.
Oh, yeah. As your gold piles up, you become visible.
And the first people who notice your new wealth are not strangers.
No, they're your friends and your family.
This is the emotional landmine of personal finance. How do you protect your gold from the people you love without destroying the relationship?
The text tackles this universal dilemma through the story of Rodin, the spear maker.
Rodin is a master craftsman. He designs a highly innovative new spear for the king's guard.
The king is so thrilled with the design that he awards Rodin 50 pieces of gold.
To put this in perspective, if Rodin saved 1 piece of gold a year, this represents 50 years of savings delivered in a single afternoon.
It is a life-altering windfall. You would think Rodin would be ecstatic.
Instead, he's completely paralyzed with anxiety, because the moment he gets home, his sister descends upon him.
She says, "Rodin, we are so proud of you, but my husband, Aram, is struggling. He wants to be a wealthy merchant."
You have all this gold. Lend it to Aram so he can start a merchant business and become rich too. He will pay you back from his massive profits.
It is an incredibly manipulative, high-pressure situation.
Rodin loves his sister. He wants to help her family. But he also knows that Aram has absolutely no experience in buying and selling goods.
Rodin feels trapped, so he does the smartest thing possible. He takes the 50 pieces of gold and goes to Mathon, the professional gold lender of Babylon, to ask for advice.
Mathon is a brilliant character study. He is a pragmatic, observant student of human nature.
He keeps this fascinating object on his desk called a token box.
It's filled with random, seemingly worthless items. A carved bone, a brass ring, a piece of frayed rope.
Mathon explains that every time he lends money to someone, he demands a token from them. The token goes into the box and stays there until the loan is repaid.
It's a psychological anchor. It reminds Mathon that every loan is tied to a human being with all their flaws and unpredictable behaviors.
When Rodin explains his dilemma with his sister and Aram, Mathon doesn't just give him a yes or no.
He tells him a fable. The fable of the ox and the ass.
I love this fable because it is the ancient equivalent of co-signing a car loan for a relative who has no income.
Mathon says the ox was complaining to the ass about how brutal his life is.
The ox says, "I pull the heavy plow from dawn until dusk. My neck is chafed, my legs ache."
But you, the ass, you just carry the master to town occasionally. And the rest of the time you eat green grass and rest.
The ass feels terrible for his friend. He wants to help. So the ass devises a plan.
He says, tomorrow, when the slave comes to hitch you to the plow, pretend to be sick.
Bellow, roll on the ground, and refuse to get up. They will have to give you a day of rest.
So the ox fakes the illness. But the plowing must go on. The fields have to be planted.
So the master tells the slave, "Hitch the ass to the plow instead."
The ass spends the entire day doing the ox's grueling, miserable work.
He gets whipped, his hooves are bleeding, his muscles are failing. At the end of the day, he limps back to the barn.
The ox thanks him profusely, but the ass is furious.
He says, "I tried to help you, and I ended up taking your burden upon myself. From now on, pull your own plow."
And their friendship is permanently ruined.
Mathon delivers the moral of the fable to Rodin with devastating clarity.
If you desire to help your friend, do so in a way that will not bring your friend's burdens upon yourself.
It is such a profound warning. How many people today have ruined their own credit score?
Or drain their own savings.
Trying to rescue a family member from the consequences of their own bad financial habits.
You try to help the ox and you end up strapped to the plow yourself.
Mathon explains the psychology of lending to Rodan. He says there are three types of borrowers.
The safest loans are based on collateral. The borrower hands over a piece of land or jewels that are worth more than the loan itself. If they don't pay, you sell the collateral.
The second type of loan is based on earning capacity. The borrower is an honest craftsman who has a steady income and a track record of paying debts.
And the third type of loan is based on pure emotion and zero capacity.
Mathon tells Rodan, ask yourself, does Aram know how to travel to foreign cities?
Does he know how to negotiate with caravan leaders?
Does he know how to buy cheap and sell at a profit?
Rodan admits that Aram knows none of those things. Aram is just a guy with a vague dream of being rich.
Mathon bluntly tells Rodan that lending 50 pieces of gold to a man with no experience and no collateral is not an investment.
It is throwing your life's work into a bottomless pit.
He advises Rodan to go back to his sister and say, Aram, I will gladly help you. Go out, apprentice with a merchant, learn the trade.
And when you can prove to me you have a viable plan and the skills to execute it, I will back you.
The sister will probably be angry, but as Mathon says, better a little caution than a great regret.
You must protect your capital from the emotional extortion of your own family.
And this concept of protection, of building walls around your wealth, is expanded in the text through a very vivid, almost cinematic chapter about the walls of Babylon itself.
It's a powerful metaphor. The text describes a historical moment when the main armies of Babylon are far away on an expedition.
A massive, brutal army of Assyrians descends upon the city to lay siege to it.
For weeks, the battering rams boom against the bronze gates. The sky is dark with flaming arrows.
The citizens inside are absolutely terrified. They know that if the walls fall, they will be slaughtered or sold into slavery.
The citizens crowd around an old veteran named Banzar who is guarding one of the high walkways.
Day after day, merchants and mothers come to him weeping, asking, will the enemy break through? Are we going to die?
And Banzar, standing firm with his spear, looks at them and repeatedly says, the walls of Babylon will protect you.
And they do. The walls hold.
The enemy eventually runs out of supplies and retreats.
The city survives because decades earlier they did the hard work of building an impenetrable defense.
The psychological translation here is critical. We will all face sieges in our lives.
You cannot control when the Assyrians show up. You cannot control a sudden recession, a massive medical emergency,
a corporate layoff, or a sudden accident. The siege is inevitable.
The only variable you control is whether or not you have built the walls before the siege begins.
In our modern context, those walls are adequate life insurance, comprehensive health insurance,
a fully funded 6-month emergency fund, and safe, dependable investments that generate passive income.
If you don't have those walls the first time a crisis hits, your financial life will be slaughtered.
You must protect your family from the unpredictable violence of life.
Okay, but let's address the elephant in the room.
Right.
It is easy to talk about compound interest when you have an extra $100 a month. It is easy to talk about protecting wealth when the king hands you 50 pieces of gold.
But what about the person listening to this who is starting from below zero?
What if you are drowning in high-interest credit card debt? The collection agencies are calling you every day.
You feel completely humiliated, and you think none of these laws apply to you because you don't have a single copper to save.
The text anticipates this exact despair. It dedicates a massive portion of the narrative to the mechanics and the psychology of escaping crushing debt.
We are introduced to a character named Dabasir.
Dabasir is introduced to us as a wealthy, highly respected camel trader in Babylon.
But he is having lunch at an inn when he spots a young, hungry, disheveled guy named Tarkad.
Tarkad actually owes Dabasir money, and when he sees Dabasir, he immediately starts making excuses.
Blaming his bad luck, his lack of opportunity, and the cruelty of the gods.
Dabasir doesn't get angry. He sits Tarkad down, buys him a massive meal, and says, let me tell you a story about a man who is in a much worse position than you.
And Dabasir proceeds to tell his own origin story. He reveals that he wasn't always a wealthy camel trader.
He used to be a saddle maker.
Dabasir was young, he had a beautiful new wife, and he wanted to impress her.
He wanted her to have the finest Eastern robes. He wanted to eat the best foods.
He wanted to project the image of a highly successful craftsman, so he started buying things on credit from the local shopkeepers.
He is the ancient equivalent of the guy making $50,000 a year but driving a leased BMW and maxing out 3 credit cards on vacations for Instagram.
He is financing an illusion.
Exactly. He was spending future labor for present comfort.
And eventually the math caught up with him. He couldn't make the payments.
The debts piled up. The shopkeepers stopped being friendly and started demanding their money.
They showed up at his house. The humiliation became unbearable.
Instead of facing the math, he does what so many people in debt do. He runs.
He abandons his wife, leaves his aging parents, flees Babylon, and tries to start over in a new city.
But his character hasn't changed. He falls in with a band of robbers attacking merchant caravans in the desert.
And this leads to his ultimate downfall. The robbers attack a caravan that happens to be heavily guarded by spearmen.
Dabasir is captured. He is stripped of everything, dragged to Damascus, and sold in the slave market.
He hits the absolute bottom of human existence. He is purchased by a desert chieftain and assigned to be a camel tender for the chieftain's wives.
He is literally wearing rags, eating scraps, and serving people who own him.
But he forms an uneasy friendship with one of the chieftain's wives, a woman named Sira.
And Sira acts as the catalyst for his entire psychological breakthrough.
She notices that he doesn't act like a born slave, and she asks him a piercing, devastating question.
She asks, "Have you the soul of a free man or the soul of a slave?"
Dabasir gets defensive. He says, "I am a free man from Babylon."
Sira immediately dismantles his delusion. She says, if a man has in himself the soul of a slave, will he not become one, no matter what his birth, even as water seeks its level?
She calls him out on his cowardice. She looks at him and says, "Your debts were your enemies. They ran you out of Babylon.
You left them alone, and they grew too strong for you. Had you fought them as a man, you could have conquered them.
But you had not the soul to fight them, and behold, thy pride has gone down until thou art a slave in Syria."
It is one of the most profound psychological insights in financial literature.
Sira defines debt not as a math problem, but as a character crisis.
Being in debt is simply the mathematical result of lacking the discipline to delay gratification.
But running from debt, refusing to face the people you owe, is the hallmark of a slave mentality.
A free man honors his obligations.
Sira leaves a few camels unguarded one night, giving him a silent opportunity to escape.
Dabasir takes the camels and flees into the brutal Syrian desert.
And the text describes this escape in harrowing detail. He travels for days, the water runs out, the camels are dying.
He is literally chewing on bitter desert brush to try to get moisture.
He collapses on a ridge of rocks, staring at the sun, completely prepared to die. His vision is blurring.
But in that moment of near death, Sira's question echoes in his mind. Soul of a slave or soul of a free man?
He realizes that if he dies there in the sand, it is the fitting, pathetic end for a runaway debtor.
It is the death of a slave.
But a free man would force his body to stand up.
A free man would survive the desert, march back into Babylon, look his creditors in the eye,
Pay back every single copper he owed, and build a home for his wife.
He has an absolute paradigm shift in the desert.
He realizes his debts aren't his enemies at all. The debts were the result of his own weakness.
The creditors, the shopkeepers he ran away from, were actually his friends.
They were the people who believed in him, who trusted his word, who fronted him the goods when he needed them.
By running away, he had betrayed his friends.
The psychological shift gives him the superhuman strength to stand up, navigate the rest of the desert, and make it back to Babylon.
But the narrative does something truly brilliant here. It doesn't just leave Dabasir's redemption as an inspiring, vague fable.
It transitions into hard, cold math.
Because you can't pay off debt with just a good attitude. You need a system.
The text introduces a historical framing device that blew my mind. We jump out of ancient Babylon, forward 5,000 years to 1934 to Nottingham University in England.
We read the letters of Professor Alfred Shrewsbury, an archaeologist who is translating actual excavated clay tablets from the ruins of Babylon.
And what are these tablets? They are not poems.
They are Dabasir's literal day-to-day accounting ledgers.
They detail the exact mathematical formula Dabasir invented to clear his massive debts while still surviving.
I push back on ancient parables sometimes because they feel too neat.
A guy survives the desert, works hard, and magically pays off his master. It's a nice story.
But how does a Babylonian camel trader's ledger translate to me dealing with a 24% APR on a massive credit card balance today?
It translates because math does not care about the century.
The tablets reveal Dabasir's strict 10-70-20 formula.
When Dabasir returns to Babylon, he doesn't hide. He visits every single person he owes money to.
He tells them, I am a free man and I am going to pay you. But here's the exact plan.
First, he commits to saving 10% of his income to keep for himself.
He knows that a man with an entirely empty purse loses his self-respect and the motivation to work.
Second, He commits to living strictly, fiercely on 70% of his income.
He pays cash for his wife's needs, their food, and their modest rent.
And finally, he takes the remaining 20% of his income and divides it proportionally among all his creditors every single month.
Let's apply that to a modern scenario to show how brutal but effective this is. Let's say you take home $5,000 a month after taxes.
Under Dabasir's plan, the very first thing you do is move $500 into a savings account you cannot touch.
You now have $4,500.
Then you take $1,000, which is 20% of the total, and you distribute it among your credit cards, your student loans, and your car payments.
You call your creditors, you explain the pro rata plan, and you do not deviate from it.
Which leaves you with $3,500 to live on. That is your 70%.
That has to cover rent, utilities, groceries, gas, everything.
And the immediate pushback is, wait, my rent alone is $2,000, my groceries are $800, I can't survive on 70%.
And Davasir's ancient answer would be, then you're living above your means.
You must downsize the apartment. You must stop eating out. You must take the bus.
You restrict your lifestyle to fit the 70% box because you are currently living the life of a slave to your creditors.
Professor Shrewsbury, the man translating these tablets in 1934, is actually hiding a secret.
He and his wife are drowning in crushing Depression-era debt themselves.
They are dodging the grocer, fighting about money, and feeling utterly hopeless.
Shrewsbury decides, as a desperate experiment, to test Dabasir's 5,000-year-old formula on his 20th century life.
He and his wife write down every single debt. They swallow their pride, go to the local merchants, and present the 20% pro rata payment plan.
They lock away 10% in savings, and they force their lifestyle into the 70% limit.
And in his final letter to his colleague, Shrewsbury is practically euphoric.
He writes that the plan worked miraculously. The creditors stopped harassing them because they were receiving steady, reliable payments.
Managing the 70% became a fun, unified challenge for him and his wife rather than a source of stress.
And most importantly, the 10% they saved began to grow, giving them back their dignity.
They broke the vicious cycle of debt using a formula carved into a rock millennia ago.
It is so deeply practical.
Whether you are escaping the deep hole of debt like Dabasir, or you are trying to build an empire of wealth like Arcad, there is a system.
But there's one final piece to this puzzle.
There is an underlying engine that actually makes the 10%, the 70%, and the compound interest function.
And surprisingly, it is the exact thing that most people dream of acquiring wealth so they can stop doing.
We are talking about the fundamental nature of work.
The source material tackles this paradox in the final story. We meet Sharunada, who is a merchant prince, an incredibly wealthy man.
He is leading a massive opulent caravan across the desert toward Babylon.
And riding beside him is a young man named Hadan Gula. Hadan is the grandson of Sharunada's former partner, a legendary man named Arad Gula.
Hadan Gula is the quintessential, spoiled, entitled heir.
He is dripping in expensive jewels, wearing impractical, gaudy robes in the middle of the desert, and complaining incessantly about the dust and the journey.
He looks at Sharunada and says, "Why do you work so hard? You are incredibly rich. If I had your wealth, I would never work again."
I would live like a prince. I would spend shekels as fast as they came. Work is meant only for slaves.
Sharunada listens to this arrogant kid and just bites his lip. He owes a massive debt of gratitude to the boy's grandfather, Arad Gula, so he restrains his anger.
But he knows he has to shatter the boy's worldview. They ride to a ridge overlooking the green, irrigated valley of Babylon.
Down below, they see a line of half-starved men struggling to pull a heavy plow through a muddy field.
Sharunada points down to the field and drops an absolute bombshell on the boy.
He says, "I used to plow that field. I was chained by the neck to the man next to me. I was a slave."
Hadan Gula's jaw hits the floor. He cannot compute that this refined, wealthy prince of a merchant was ever a chained slave.
Sharunada explains his history. He was a free man, but his older brother had racked up massive gambling debts.
In Babylon, if you couldn't pay your debts, your family members could be sold into slavery to cover them.
Sharunada was sold down the river. As he was marched toward Babylon in chains, he was terrified.
He knew that the worst fate for a slave was to be sent to build the massive brick walls of the city. It was grueling, lethal labor where men were literally worked to death under the whips.
But marching next to him was an older slave named Megiddo. And Megiddo gave Sharunada a piece of advice that changed his destiny.
Megiddo said, "Some men hate work. They make it their enemy. Better to treat it like a friend. Make yourself like it.
Don't mind, because it is hard. Work well done does good to the man who does it. It makes him a better man.
Shahrunada adopts this philosophy. When they reach the slave market, he doesn't sulk or look defiant.
He actively sells himself. He convinces a baker to buy him by promising to learn the trade quickly and be the hardest worker the baker has ever seen.
He realizes that work is not a treadmill he is trapped on. It is a ladder he can climb.
He learns to grind the flour, he learns to bake the bread, and then he takes initiative.
He proposes a business deal to his master. He says, "If I stay up late and bake extra honey cakes, can I take them into the city streets in the afternoon and sell them? We can split the profits."
The baker agrees. So Shahrunada, a slave, is out in the streets hustling, loudly selling honey cakes to hungry workers, earning pennies that he carefully hides away toward his eventual freedom.
And here is the twist that completely breaks the spoiled grandson.
Shahrunada asks Hadangula, "Do you know who one of my best customers was? Do you know who always bought my honey cakes?"
It was Audiobook, the boy's revered, wealthy grandfather.
Shahrunada reveals that Audiobook, the patriarch of their wealthy family, was also a slave at that time.
He was a slave who had negotiated an arrangement with his master to trade rugs in the market.
Hadangula refuses to believe it. He cannot accept that his heroic grandfather was a despised, low-class slave.
But Shahrunada explains that it was precisely their shared, relentless, joyful work ethic that saved them both.
While the other slaves shirked their duties, complained, fought the masters, and ended up broken or dead on the wall-building crews.
Aradgula and Shahrunada used work as their only available weapon to defeat their circumstances.
Shahrunada tells the boy, "Work was the only key your grandfather had to his fast locked door. He loved to work. The gods appreciated his efforts and rewarded him liberally."
They both eventually bought their freedom, partnered up, and built a massive commercial empire, not by avoiding work, but by embracing it as their greatest ally.
That story completely dismantles the grandson's entitlement. Hadangula realizes that all his flashy jewelry, his fine robes, his arrogance, it's all just a hollow facade.
The real honor, the real power of his family line was forged in the dirt, the sweat, and the enterprise of his grandfather.
He physically takes off his jeweled earrings and his gaudy rings. He drops back in the caravan line, humbled, and decides he needs to start working.
Because work is the truest friend a person can have in the pursuit of wealth.
It perfectly synthesizes everything. You can have the most perfect 10-70-20 debt repayment plan.
You can have a brilliant budget. You can understand compound interest mathematically.
But none of those gears turn without the raw energy of your own daily, dedicated labor. Work is the fuel that powers the entire Babylonian system.
Which brings us to the ultimate macro lesson of this entire deep dive.
We've talked extensively about the individual psychology of Arkad, Nomasir, Debasir, and Shahrunada.
But zoom out for a second and look at the physical reality of the city of Babylon itself.
The text provides this historical sketch at the very end that completely changes how you view the story.
When you look at the geography and geology of ancient Babylon, you realize something stunning. The city had absolutely zero natural advantages.
It had no natural resources whatsoever.
Nothing. There were no forests to cut for timber.
There were no stone quarries to mine for building materials. There were no natural veins of gold or silver.
It wasn't even on a natural, easy trade route. It barely rained.
The entire region was just a flat, arid, sun-baked, miserable dirt valley sitting next to the Euphrates River.
Yet it became the wealthiest city in the history of the ancient world.
Every single ounce of Babylon's staggering wealth, the 160-foot high brick walls built from baked mud, the massive irrigation canals that diverted the river and turned the desert into a fertile farming paradise, the towering temples.
It was all completely 100% man-made.
They took dirt and water, combined it with human engineering, absolute discipline, and an understanding of the laws of wealth, and they manufactured a miracle.
And that historical fact proves something so deeply vital for anyone listening right now.
It proves that your environment does not dictate your destiny.
Your current lack of resources, the family you were born into, the debt you currently hold, none of that is a permanent sentence.
If the Babylonians could build the richest civilization on earth out of literal dust and river water, you can build your own financial independence regardless of where you are starting from today.
The laws of wealth are universal.
They don't care if you are carving clay tablets in 3000 BC or if you are staring at a banking app on your smartphone right now.
Pay yourself first. Control your desires. Multiply your savings.
Guard your investments against fools. Protect your family from the siege. Honor your debts.
And make a friend of hard work.
It is the ultimate demystification of finance. It takes the power out of the hands of the algorithmic trading computers and puts it directly back into your own hands.
It's all up to you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the enduring wisdom of Babylon, I want to leave you, the listener, with a specific question to mull over.
Take this with you as you look at your own bank accounts, your own debts, and the trajectory of your own life.
If you were to act as the architect of your own personal Babylon today, knowing exactly what you know now about human nature and the timeless laws of gold, what is the very first brick you need to lay or the very first leak you need to plug to start building your own unbreakable financial city?